And as we're getting settled here, I'd love to hear from everyone. Oh yeah, breakfast if you're out west, that's a good call. It's not everyone's lunch hour, maybe a little breakfast break in the morning. But yeah, I'd love to hear in the chat, where's everyone chiming in from? I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I recognize a few names, but a lot of y'all are new to me. All right, Denver. Hey, Lauren, Charlotte, London. Ooh, international. Now I can say this was an international webinar. Thank you. Charlotte, lots of Charlotte folks. Thank you. Northern Georgia, San Diego, Munich, Germany. Wow, lots of international folks. Love it. Love to see it. Thank you for coming and thank you for taking this time out of your day to invest in you. All right, let's get started. I'm sure more people are going to be hopping in throughout the next few minutes, but I want to make sure you all get the most of your time today. And thank you again for being here. It's awesome to see so many people excited about this topic that I'm super passionate about, and I love to help people as much as possible around this. So a few expectations before we get started. I will be sharing my content information for about the first 30, 40 minutes. And feel free to chime in with the chat. I would love to hear what you're gaining from this, what you're learning, and what's sticking, what's resonating with you. But I will save plenty of time at the end for questions. So whether you're sharing it in the chat throughout or save them for the end, either way is good for me. But I do want to make sure we can get through all of the content because I jam-packed this today for you all. So you have lots of takeaways with you. And at the end of the content, 30, 40 minutes in, I also have a free download for you. So if you stick around till then, you get the link to that. And then again, afterwards, we'll have plenty of time for questions. And if you have something specific you're working on that you want to talk through, I'm happy to talk through that with you at the end. Maybe do some live coaching if you're up for it or whatever will help you the most. So again, thank you so much for being here for the Productivity Unlocked, the 6 performance personas revealed. So I'm really excited to share this information and these personas with you because this is honestly my brainchild. I love to call it that. But I've been learning coaching and working with clients for the last 5 years now. And this is really a culmination of that. So seeing these trends with clients kept coming up over and over again. And it became this, this brainchild, this framework that came from that. And it was something I just had to get out of my head. So I've been working on it the last few years, and it is finally ready for your consumption to help you move forward quicker. But first, before we get into that, a little bit of a disclaimer about productivity I want to share today is that most people, when you maybe sign up for a productivity webinar, you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to learn maybe a cool software or app or some sort of tool that's going to just make me work a lot quicker than I do today. Well, that's not what this webinar is. I hope you gathered that from the event description, but it's not that kind of webinar. And that's not the type of things we're going to be going through today. What instead we're going to be focusing on is performance, understanding your own performance, your strengths when it comes to performance. And what I mean by performance and your strengths is really what are you naturally and able to do in order to perform or execute on a goal or project. I'll use those terms interchangeably, goals, projects. So just relate it to whatever it is that you're working on, both personally and professionally. So we also, when we're thinking about performance and our strengths, naturally, there are also those blind spots or the things we're not as good at. So I want you to be able to walk away from this webinar being able to really easily understand what your strengths are when it comes to performance or going after a goal, but then also understand what those blind spots are and be able to do something about it and be able to do something quickly, which will then improve your performance, improve your productivity. So again, it's a different way to think about it. It's not just a quick fix. It's not some app you have to download or software. It's a really simple framework that you can use over and over again. And I will give you that download at the end as well. So what we're going to be covering today is getting to know those performance strengths and blind spots, and then how to unlock your own productivity based on your performance persona. And with that too, by learning all 6 of these performance personas, you'll learn how to collaborate better with people who have different natural work habits or have different personas than you. Before we learn the personas, we are first going to tee it up by, again, learning a little bit more about performance and how this shows up. So I've found, again, over and over again, working with clients over these last few years, that there are these three key elements to performance. First, we have our clarity of where you're going. This is that high level strategic view of looking at the long term of where you're headed, of that, again, goal or project. Second is the structure, how you'll get there. That's the day-to-day execution to actually move forward on it. And then also we have confidence. That's a belief in yourself to get there, and also the belief in the goal or project itself. And again, I've found that these three elements, in order to be in our flow state, or we'll call it peak performance, is that you need all three of these at one time. That's why this visual is so specific. And it kind of takes you back, maybe for me at least, it takes me back to middle school, learning about Venn diagrams, but that's very intentional because we have these three key elements, and where they come together is peak performance. Again, flow state, state of genius, whatever you want to call it, but this is when we have that momentum and you're at your highest productivity. So what we need to be able to learn is, what does it look like when we're not at our peak performance? We all know that feeling of in the zone, you're moving quickly, you feel like nothing can stop you. But I'd say for the most of us, we're not in that flow state most of the time. It's those little bursts of energy, those bursts of excitement and productivity that we get. Then it goes away and you're like, wait, now what? How do I get that back? How do I get that? Most of the time we think it's motivation we need, or we need all these, things in order. The temperature has to be just right. I have to have slept well that night. I, need all these ducks in a row in order to get that flow state. But the good news is that's not true. There are these three key elements are usually what's missing, at least one of these, maybe two of them. So again, the diagram here is very intentional to help you identify which you have. Maybe you have one, maybe you have two of them. And that's where the personas come in, is each color here on the diagram. So if you have a lot of clarity, you're going to be in the blue. If you have clarity and structure, you're in purple. And each one of these colors signifies a persona. Make sense? Everyone following along still? Let me make sure I'm checking in on the chat here. All right, we look good. All right, people are still rolling in. Welcome, everyone. We're already on a roll. Don't worry, you're not missing too much. The good stuff is coming next. All right, before I introduce the personas, I know you're dying to hear it. The suspense is killing you, but we're almost there. Some things you should know about the personas first. These are not a fixed personality trait. When you think about other like workplace assessments, like the DISC, Myers-Briggs, even Enneagram, those are fixed traits where you are one type and you're that type forever and always. And it's designed that way, and that's great. This is different than that. So I want you to make sure you're thinking of this a little bit more open-minded than that. So these may change over time. You may be one persona one day and a different persona the next day, and it may change depending on what you're working on, the type of the project, the phase of the project. Maybe it's something brand new, so you're lacking confidence. Maybe it's something you've been working on for years and you're getting stuck against a wall somewhere. Maybe it's your role in an organization, the level within an organization, or even your energy that day. Because again, these three elements, some of them come more naturally to us. So if you have less energy that day, you're going to gravitate towards the one that comes more naturally to you. But if not, then you can have access to more of them a lot easier. Okay, without further ado, we're introducing the 6 performance personas. I'll give a quick overview first of all 6 of these to help you identify maybe which one resonates most with you. And then we'll deep dive into all of them with specific techniques and tools to help you find that performance and that peak performance based on which one you're resonating with. So again, remember, these may change over time and you're not stuck with just one. So a lot of clients I work with usually connect with at least 2 of them, if not 3. All right, first off, we're going to start at the top here. So the visionary here is when you have a lot of clarity, but you're missing the structure and confidence. And as a reminder, the clarity is about the long-term strategic view. So what that looks like for a visionary is that they're looking at that end goal. They have that clear vision in mind of where they're headed or what the goal or project is going to look like at the end, and probably a lot of those steps along the way. But without the structure of the day-to-day support and without the confidence and belief in themselves to move forward, they tend to get stuck in that long-term view, and it's hard to take those next steps or even that first step because they're looking so far ahead. Next is the thinker here in purple. The thinker has that clarity, again, that strategic high-level view of the goal, but they also have some structure. So they're also good at doing the research and some of the behind the scenes prepping for the goal. But without that confidence, they tend to get stuck in the behind the scenes. So it's a lot of preparing for the goal, for the project, but not actually working on the project itself. And again, feel free to chime in whenever you feel called out. Usually that's what people say when I am introducing this. They're like, yep, that one is me. I totally see myself in that. I'd love to hear along the way which one's resonating. Also think about which one, maybe for people that you work with closely, which ones sound like them. Oh yeah, we already have a few thinkers coming in. Love to see it. So we have the thinkers behind the scenes, not so much moving forward on the project. They love the behind the scenes. Then we have the planner. They love their structure. I admit this is usually my natural state. Anyone that knows me knows this about me. Love the organization, love the planning, love the mapping out the steps for a project, but they're with the structure, they're also really good at taking next steps. But the downfall here, without the clarity of a long-term view, you tend to get stuck in that day-to-day where you're just moving forward, checking things off your list, and you kind of forget what it's all for. You forget that goal, you forget that vision, and without the confidence, I see here for planners is that they don't have the confidence to say no, to prioritize properly, to delegate. So they just take everything on and they think they can organize their way out of it. And it doesn't usually work for anyone. Next up is the doer. Here we have the structure of the day-to-day execution. They're good with habits and moving forward and that discipline, but they're bringing in some confidence, which usually looks like coming up with a lot of new ideas along the way. And that can be super helpful until they get to the point where they keep starting new projects and not always finishing them. Or they're like, oh, I could try this along the way, I could try this. And they get so hung up in the doing and trying new things that they're not finishing their goals. They're not achieving their goals and projects. So we need to help them with that. Next up is the dreamer, who has all the confidence that all of us wish we probably had. They're the people literally head in the clouds, talking about all the ideas they're coming up with, all the things that they could do someday. But that's where they get stuck because they don't have the clarity of one specific direction or goal that they're committed to. They're still, oh, I could do this at a high level. And they don't have the structure of that day-to-day viewpoint of those projects and goals. So they're living in the clouds. A lot of times this is usually people early on in the stage of a project or a new goal where you're still trying to figure out which goal you want to commit to. So people don't always stay in here too long usually, but not always. Lastly is the motivator. Here you have that confidence of the different ideas and the belief in yourself or your team or whoever's involved to go after that goal. But you also have the clarity, which creates that high level view and that commitment and direction or commitment to one direction. So it allows you to stay motivated for yourself and for everyone else that's involved. All right, so I think it seems like everyone knows which one they're at. I see a lot of thinkers, planner, doer, thinker and doer, planner, motivator. Yeah, and again, it can kind of change depending on the day, depending on what you're working on. So what we will go through next is deep dive into each one of these fairly quickly. And again, there's a free download at the end that will give you kind of a cheat sheet for all of this with the visual for the framework and a cheat sheet for each one of you. So again, depending on what you are and depending on the people that you're working with, you can kind of have a better sense moving forward what to do next to get unstuck and to find that flow state for you. First up is the visionary. Again, their tagline, I know where I'm going. And as a reminder, their strengths are that they're committed to that specific direction, vision. They have that high level strategic thinking, but their blind spots, they don't often know where to start because, again, think of the visual, they're looking so far in the future. So they can get stuck and overwhelmed because they're thinking about all these future steps, all these things that they need to do at some point that they can't even think, what's that first step? So to unlock your productivity as a visionary, always recommend beginning with a roadmap that just breaks down your long-term vision into milestones along the way. So you want to have maybe some key points, say it's a year-long project or even your annual goals at the beginning of the year. You don't want to, most people end up waiting until the last minute to work on them. So maybe break it down monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, and then think, what do I need to do next? Because you don't want to get overwhelmed looking at, oh, a whole year, maybe a 3-year plan, 5-year plan. You don't want to get too overwhelmed with all those steps along the way. So think, what's that next step? What's one thing I can do today to move this project forward and have those bite-sized steps along the way? One of my clients that is a visionary, when she first came to work with me, she had a few very specific goals that she wanted to work on. Within work, she wanted a promotion to the next role. She had a side hustle business that she wanted to be more committed to more regularly. And personally, she also was hoping to move across the country. So 3 pretty big goals that she felt super overwhelmed with because she knew all the things it would take to do any of those goals and achieve any of them. But it was almost paralyzing thinking like, where do I even start? Those are such huge things. How do I do them all at once? So what we worked through is just starting with one, breaking it down, starting with those baby steps, those next steps to help her see, okay, what's the first thing you need to do? Okay, what comes after that? Honestly, it can be that simple when a lot of times we have these great visions, great future ideas that we want to be working on, and we just get paralyzed at the beginning to get started. So on the other side, if you're trying to work better and collaborate better with someone who's a visionary, some things to think about on your side is, again, helping them convert that vision to bite-sized steps. And a lot of times it's just encourage them to rip off the Band-Aid and just get started because they're stuck in their own way. They are not even sure where to get started. So, hey, starting anywhere is better than nowhere. All right, next up we have the thinker. Their tagline, I'm thinking about where I'm going. And you can even see in that, thinking about where I'm going, but not moving to where they want to be going. The strengths again here, thinking about long-term strategic thinking, researching, planning out those steps and ideas, but they get stuck in analysis paralysis because they have all the research, they have all the ideas, all the potential scenarios mapped out, but where do they take that first step? How do they put themselves out there? They don't have the confidence to just get started. So when it comes to unlocking your productivity here, again, getting started with baby steps, but you want to maybe even think about creating habits and discipline that will reward small wins, because when we're rewarding those small wins, you're going to naturally boost your confidence by saying, wow, I made that first step. Wow, I sent that first email to a potential client. Oh, I had my first sales call. I had this first, whatever it is for you. We don't want to get hung up in, again, that long-term thinking where you're waiting for that end goal. Let's celebrate all the little steps and all the little goals along the way and just ask yourself, what can I celebrate today? So another example from a client here, he came to me with he was about to work on this huge business project where he used to do it with a business partner and now he was doing it on his own. So he had all this research, all these potential scenarios mapped out, all the data, information, anything that he could have needed, he had ready for him. And he came to me because he wasn't doing the thing. He's literally like, I have all of it that I need. I know the steps I need to do, but I'm not doing it. So we worked on the simple habits of having even the outside accountability by meeting with me weekly to check in on the progress and celebrate those wins, but having those smaller habits on a daily or weekly basis of, hey, what are the one thing you could do each day to move forward, or each week, depending on the timeline, depending on the project, and then celebrating it. Maybe at the end of each day, at the end of each week, celebrate, what am I celebrating this week? What did I do to move forward? Those small wins along the way. Stephanie feels so seen. I get it. When you are collaborating with a thinker, little typo, it's all good, you want to help them move past those behind the scenes work, because a lot of times they get really off track building processes, symptoms, or processes and systems. And it's almost like the hypothetical, like once, a great example, once I get all the clients, I have this huge, great process that'll be amazing for them and I'll be able to onboard so seamlessly. And then are you doing the work to actually talk to a potential client? That one is such a great example, because I see it all the time. Whatever the situation is for you, is like you're doing all the prep work for when the thing does happen, but you're not doing anything to make the thing happen, if that makes sense. So you want to also think about boosting their confidence by empowering them by saying, you have everything you need. Honestly, saying that simple one line to people that are stuck in the thinker phase can be huge, because most of the times they have more than they need. So just reminding them of that, you have everything you need to get started. So you just need to get started. Simple as that. Next up is the planner. Their tagline, I'm planning what I need to do. The strengths here: planning and organizing your next steps, the discipline to take consistent action in your goals. But when taken too far, the blind spots become that it's hard to prioritize all of these goals, and you take on too much, which can result in burnout or overwhelm. Again, they think they can do all the things and somehow organize or plan their way out of stress. So how you unlock your productivity as a planner is to set those realistic expectations for yourself and others by prioritizing and delegating your to-do list. A simple question that can help is this deadline realistic? I see all the time that people are just setting arbitrary deadlines for themselves and other people, or you're making assumptions about what these deadlines are. Someone sends you an email, asks you to do something, they don't give a time that's needed, and you just say, okay, I'll get it to you by end of day. I'll get it to you by end of week, whatever it is. A lot of times that's our habit, is to just say, we're going to get it done as soon as possible, but set those clear expectations of what's actually realistic for you. Stop, pause a minute, look at your calendar. What is realistic for you to do and for you to commit to based on all of your other commitments that you already have? Lauren, oh wait, I'm a planner? Yep, that's me. Lauren, we are in the same boat. This is also me. I'm totally calling myself out here. Another example from a recent client who was stuck in this planner phase, and she also had a team working underneath her at work, and she kept getting frustrated that her team wasn't doing enough and she was taking on so much and so much. So what we had to work through is setting those expectations with her team, setting those deadlines for herself, for other people, and giving her team grace as they learn and as they got caught up to speed with her. And a lot of it, honestly, too, for planners, is setting boundaries and learning to say no. I know you might cringe if you're a planner. That can be the hardest thing to learn how to do, is saying no and learning boundaries, but it will be so helpful for you. And all of this stuff, all of these personas that we're talking through, the key here is learning to work smarter, not harder. I love that tagline. I say it all the time, but that's really what we're doing. Is a lot of times we're taking on too much, we're exerting too much energy, and we just need to learn how to tweak what we're working on so that we can be as efficient, honestly, as possible for ourselves and the people around us. So when you're working with a planner, some things to help them bring the clarity is reminding them of that bigger picture goal or project so that they can prioritize better, or maybe talking them through how to prioritize. And to bring in some confidence for them is encourage them to pivot as needed, because sometimes they get super attached to their plans and all their organization that they already did, that they can't see when something has to change along the way. So you can help them see that. Boundaries have changed my life, Stephanie. Me too. It's so helpful. Oops. All right. Next up, we have the doer. The tagline, I'm busy taking action. So as a reminder, their strengths are taking consistent action and coming up with new ideas. So they have the structure and confidence, but without the clarity, this often feels like the shotgun approach, where they're taking a lot of inefficient action, throwing spaghetti against the wall, seeing what's going to stick. So they're good at starting new projects, but not always finishing them. The quintessential example here is a person that's in the middle of 5 home projects and they're not completed yet. How to unlock your productivity as a doer is taking that time to just pause and look more strategically at next steps to make sure you're in alignment. And again, we're looking for more clarity here. So asking, am I headed in the right direction? Do you even know what the right direction is? Or are you just so busy in the day-to-day doing all the things that you're not even sure what it's all for? So thinking through what that future vision is for you and what you want it to look like in the future, and then start making the appropriate steps on a day-to-day level to get there. A great example here, one of my clients who is a doer, he was in a sales role and he was so good at taking action every day. He knew how many calls he had to make, how many emails to send, all of these things, but he was still getting hung up and losing some of his momentum because he wasn't clear. He wasn't taking that time to think strategically. So he was losing that momentum, and he even wanted to think more strategically about different things to try instead of getting so stuck in the same tasks and activities every single day. He's like, well, I do have all these other ideas, but I don't know how to focus on them and which ones to focus on, right? So honestly, we took our coaching sessions as his weekly break in his week to think strategically about what he's working on, thinking about his long-term vision, and then what he needed to tweak on the daily, weekly level in order to align better to that. So it allowed him to get excited again about his long-term goals. It allowed him to try new things that were very intentional and not just the sporadic try new things and then not commit to it. And we have the Duracell bunny example. Yes, yeah, it's like we're go, 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 but then you're again exerting almost too much energy. It's great that you have all that energy, but you don't need to use it all up in one sitting. And just tweaking this again will help you be more thoughtful and intentional with your actions, so you don't have to do as much. So when we're collaborating with a doer, think of that idea of just a strategy or brainstorm session with them to help them think more long-term. Again, my client example, he was always so grateful. He's like, wow, I just haven't taken the time to just stop and think about this from a high level. And that can be huge. So just holding that space for them and then helping them talk through all their projects and ideas so that they can prioritize better. And again, we're not just do anymore. We can be doing and moving forward, but it's way more intentional and we know why we're doing everything. All right, next up is the dreamer coming up with new ideas. The strengths, as a reminder, they're all about confidence. So they're coming up with new ideas. They're pivoting as needed along the way. They're good at leading and collaborating with others, but they can find it hard to transition from idea phase into action. So they tend to shift gears a lot and maybe not make much progress. So if you are a dreamer, some things I recommend is starting to think through the reality and depth of your ideas with something like a mind mapping session. And that's when you're kind of just doing a brain dump, maybe on a piece of paper, and you start thinking about all the different layers within your ideas and what it would look like to bring it to real life. And even asking yourself, what would this idea look like in real life? Because a lot of times when our head is in the cloud, we don't think about what this idea or goal would look like on a day-to-day basis in the future. Sure, it sounds great. A lot of examples here is like, oh, someday I'm going to start a business. People say, well, have you thought about what that would look like on a day-to-day basis? And is that something you're excited about, what that lifestyle would look like, or not? Or is it just sounds good? So it's a good way to kind of check in with yourself here. And if you're working with a dreamer, some things to think about is helping them research their ideas. Again, bringing in a little bit of that structure. The people who are on this side of the spectrum can bring in that research and help them think through those multiple layers. And then even thinking about breaking their ideas down into short and long-term steps is a really easy place to start. Like, okay, what would that look like long-term? What would that look like on the short term? As just a starting point to get it out of their head and onto paper is usually the best place to start here. And lastly, we have the motivator. So the motivator is sharing the vision with others. The strengths here, they have both the clarity and confidence. So they're good at collaborating, talking through ideas with others. They're super committed to one clear vision or goal. But the blind spots, when this is taken too far, they get frustrated that they're not moving faster. And some people on the other side of the circles who are doing the day-to-day work can see the motivator as all talk, no action, because they're the people talking to the teams, they're talking about the vision, they're motivating, and not always in the weeds of a project. So if you're a motivator, some things to think about is what kind of support do I need to move forward? And you can think about, I always think about these three areas: people, resources, and tools. People being, is it a mentor? Is it someone you can learn from who's already been there? Is it someone on your team that could support you along this? Is it a professional you need to hire who can do it for you? Think about the resources. That could be, where do you need to learn more? It could be books, podcasts, courses, things like that could support you. Or maybe it's tools, that going back to the idea of like software, apps, things like that can help bring you some shortcuts to help you get from the high level idea phase into the day-to-day action a little bit easier than being stuck in the overwhelm. So when you're collaborating with a motivator, think about them being a verbal processor. And what I mean by that is they like to talk through their ideas out loud and can get their ideas better that way than sitting alone. So maybe set up some time to be that sounding board, help them brainstorm out loud. Or being an accountability buddy, having deadlines to check in on progress is super helpful for people who don't have that structure themselves. They usually need it more externally. Okay, so that is all of our 6 personas. And as I promised, I wanted to share this free download with you that has the diagrams here and the cheat sheet about each of the personas to learn more about each of them and what to do to boost your productivity if you're in any of those phases or people that you know. And all you need to do is scan this QR code, and I'll also drop it in the chat, the link for this. There it is, that should work. Paste as a picture too, that's all good. So there's 3 questions about your experience today and what you learned, and I will send you an email later today with the download. And if you loved this topic and you want to learn more, 2 opportunities for you to learn more with me. First off is coaching. You can receive ongoing accountability and a customized plan by working through this. I know I gave a lot of examples of clients who have gone through this work already. And together we are constantly talking about strategic goal setting, time management, communication skills, leadership skills, all of the things to help you be more productive at work. But then also a lot of this feeds into your home life too. And a lot of times I'll see people are working smarter at work so that they can then get home earlier and spend more time with their families. One of my favorite examples of a client this year is she's an accountant and a partner at her firm. And we started working together at the beginning of this year. And she even gave me a heads up, hey, it's about to be my busy season with tax season, April 15th deadline. Just a heads up, I might get a little crazy. Hopefully I can, still commit to our schedule, but we might have to move some things around. And after 2 months of us working together, we were already on target to hit her deadline by April 15th, like very smoothly. So then she added a new goal for us to work through, is that she wanted to take 3 days off the week before her deadline because her kids were on spring break and she wanted more time with them. And she was able to do it. She was able to do it without working crazy hours. And she took 3 days off, and she's like been an accountant for 13 years and said she's never been able to take off time, let alone not work crazy hours and weekends leading up to that deadline. And it was thanks to all of this work and all these continual, accountability, talking through this, understanding her habits, her personas, and then being able to tweak, okay, what are you missing? And she said she was even sharing this diagram with other people at work when they were getting hung up, like, hey, maybe, are you missing clarity or structure, confidence? And it was even helping other people in the firm too. So on that note, if you want to bring this training to your team, to an organization, maybe your leadership team, people you work with, or an organization that you volunteer with that brings in speakers, let me know. Please reach out. This is a great tool for teamwork, especially. I typically do it in a 90-minute session with teams so that they can talk throughout each persona to get to know who is which persona, how they can support each other better. And it's really, really eye-opening for people. I think a lot of this is just realizing that not everyone thinks the same way and approaches projects very differently so that you can collaborate better. So again, this is the same QR code as the last page for the survey. And the last question is just expressing your interest in any of my services, and I'll reach out to you directly about that. Or feel free to reach out on my website or email me, and we can get in touch that way. And to wrap it up, I always like to share this. If nothing else today, the biggest thing that will help you moving forward to improve your productivity is that whenever you're feeling stuck, just ask yourself, which of these 3 elements am I missing? Is it clarity, structure, confidence? And you can pretty quickly pick up on it and then help yourself identify, okay, if I'm missing the structure, like I know where I'm going, I believe in myself to go there, but I'm not moving. Oh, I'm missing the structure, the plan of how I'll get there. Okay, let me start with a plan. It can be as easy as that. And basically, you're coaching yourself at that moment. So I'm going to put myself out of a job by sharing this secret with you all. Okay, just a last page here, how to keep in touch with me. And I would love to hear from you all what you got from this. And oh yeah, Charlotte said she'll print it and keep it at my desk. I do the same, and I tell all my clients to do that as well for the diagram. It's super helpful. Even though I've built this over the last few years, I still refer to it all the time, and it can help me get out of a pinch as well. So I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording here too. If anyone wants to share, and if you have any questions, I will stick on or stay on for the next 20 minutes for questions, coaching, anything you got. I am here for you all. But thank you again. If anyone's hopping off, thank you so much for your time today, for investing in you, for learning something new. And I really hope you can move forward with this and have even just one little nugget that will help you move forward and improve your performance and increase your productivity moving forward. Thank you.